He was older, off limits, my father's best friend. He never crossed the line. But every time his hand brushed mine, I burned. Every look he gave me, full of restraint, only pulled me deeper. And when he held me without kissing me, I knew. Sometimes the touch that doesn't happen is the one that sets your soul on fire. Please subscribe my new channel and spot me for my motivation. It started with a glance. Not the kind that makes your heart skip a beat instantly. No, this one was slower. More like a quiet pull beneath the surface. A tug I wasn't ready to admit I felt. His name was Clark Mitchell, and he was my father's best friend. The one who'd always been around. At every summer barbecue, every family Thanksgiving, every unexpected rainy afternoon when Mom would invite someone over for tea and board games. He was calm, composed, with silvering hair that only made him look more like the kind of man women secretly watched from behind coffee cups. There was something deeply mysterious about him, almost too controlled, too polite, too perfect. And maybe that's what made my thoughts wander into places I never meant them to go. I was 25. Not a girl. Not a child anymore. But every time Clark looked at me, it felt like he still saw me as that awkward teenager with braces and a high ponytail. He never looked too long, never let his hand linger, never let his voice dip into the kind of tone that might imply something deeper. He never crossed the line. But God, how I wanted him to. It was the week before Christmas when everything started to change. My parents were out of town visiting my sister in Vermont, and I was staying in their house alone for the week. Clark had promised my dad he'd check in on me since I'd never been a fan of being in the big house alone. I hadn't asked for it. But I didn't say no either. The first night he brought wine. Said it was a new bottle he wanted to try and figured we could share it. I told myself it was harmless. 2 adults, 2 glasses, a little background jazz playing from the vinyls my dad collected. The fireplace crackled while Clark sat across from me. His legs crossed at the ankle, eyes watching me over the rim of his glass. Talk about books, music, old memories. He laughed when I brought up how I used to call him Uncle Clark and cringed. He leaned back and smiled that deep, unreadable smile. "You've grown up, Maddie," he said, his voice like warm velvet. "I barely recognize you now." I held my glass tighter. "But you still treat me like a kid. I'm old enough to know better." "Better than what?" I asked, holding his gaze just a little too long. He didn't answer. Just raised his brow and took another slow sip. It was that moment I knew. He wasn't oblivious. He just refused to play with fire. The nights that followed were like a dream I didn't want to wake from. He came over twice more. The second time he helped me shovel snow from the driveway, then came in to warm up. I had made hot cocoa with cinnamon and whipped cream and handed it to him while he peeled off his gloves. His hands were red from the cold, and I couldn't help staring at how strong they looked. How careful. I shouldn't have watched him from the kitchen when he changed his wet sweater for the dry one he brought. But I did. And when he caught me looking through the reflection in the window, I didn't look away. He smirked. I burned. That night, I wore my softest pajama shorts and an oversized hoodie that just barely covered them. He never commented. Not a word. But his jaw tensed when I curled my legs under me on the couch. And when he reached to grab his phone from the table, his hand brushed my bare knee. He froze. I didn't move. I wanted him to say something, anything. But he didn't. Just picked up the phone and stood to leave. "It's getting late," he said. "I'll check in tomorrow." "Clark." He turned. "Would it be so wrong?" I asked quietly. "If we stopped pretending." There was a beat of silence. Then another. "I've known you since you were 10 years old, Maddie." "I'm not 10 anymore." His gaze darkened. Not angry, not ashamed. Just full of everything he wouldn't say. "You're stunning," he said, so softly it felt like a whisper against my skin. And I'd be lying if I said I haven't noticed. But I'm not the guy who takes advantage of situations. What if it's not taking advantage? I stepped toward him, my heart racing. What if it's just finally giving in? He shook his head slightly, his eyes roaming my face like he was memorizing it. You deserve someone who doesn't feel guilty for wanting you. He left without another word. I didn't sleep that night. The next evening, I wasn't expecting him. But when I heard the knock on the door, my stomach did that slow roll again. I opened it, heart in my throat. Clark stood there, his hair damp from the snow, his coat dusted in white. He didn't say anything, just held up a paper bag. "Dinner," he said simply. "Chinese." I laughed, and for the first time in days, the tension cracked. We ate on the floor in front of the fireplace, sharing noodles and dumplings and stories. I leaned back on my hands, stretching my neck when a yawn caught me by surprise. "Tired?" he asked. "Just warm. Comfortable." He smiled. "Good." When I stood to get a blanket, I tripped over one of the cushions and fell right into his lap. We both froze. My breath caught, and his hands instinctively held my waist to steady me. "Maddie." I looked up at him. His eyes were darker now. "Stormy." "I'm not sorry," I whispered. His fingers curled into my hips for just a second, just 1 second of weakness, before he let go and stood up quickly. "I should go," he said, pacing toward the door. I followed, my hand brushing his arm. "Clark, please don't keep walking away." He turned around, and for once, all the restraint was gone from his expression. His voice was hoarse, almost breaking. "You have no idea how much I want to kiss you. To press you against that wall and let every thought I've had for the past year out. But if I start, I don't think I'll stop." I stepped closer. "What if I don't want you to stop?" His breath hitched, eyes searching mine. "You're playing with fire. Then burn me." His lips parted, but he didn't move, didn't touch me. Instead, he clenched his fists and took a slow step back. "I won't be the one who crosses that line." Then he left. Again. The next day, I didn't hear from him. Or the next. I was going crazy. My thoughts wouldn't stop. My body ached with something I couldn't explain. I went through every moment in my head, wondering if I'd scared him off, or worse, if he truly didn't feel the same way. Then the doorbell rang. Clark stood there, drenched from the rain, no coat, no bag, no reason. "I can't stay away," he said, voice low, rough. "But I still can't cross the line." I opened the door wider. "Then stay on the edge with me." And that night we did. We sat close, our knees brushing. I let my fingers trail along the inside of his wrist. He didn't stop me. He closed his eyes and let his breath shudder. I leaned into him slowly, letting my forehead rest against his shoulder. His arm came around me, finally, and I felt his lips press softly to my hair. We never kissed. He never touched me in ways the world would call wrong. But in that room, with just the sound of rain and the fire in our breathing, everything inside us danced dangerously close to the edge. His hand cradled my jaw once, his thumb brushing the edge of my cheekbone as if I were something sacred. And in that moment I knew. Sometimes the sexiest touch is the one that never fully lands. Because restraint can burn hotter than release. And he never crossed the line. But I wanted him to. Still do.